There's a place in the Zohar, in the book of Balak, in the page 212, Parashat Balak. And the Zohar is saying that right before the process of the Geulah is going to start, in one of the major cities of the nation of Romi, which is Edom, which is the United States, at the end of Elul, that's what it's saying, at the end of Elul, in one day, 3 towers are going to crash and fall down, which I don't know if you remember, but September 11 was Chaf Gimel Elul, the end of Elul. And in one of the major cities of the kingdom of Romi, which is the United States, 3 towers fell down.
I wrote a book in 1995, and I said that if the West doesn't wake up to the suicidal nature of militant Islam, the next thing you'll see is the militant Islam is bringing down the World Trade Center. Nations, democracies don't go to war easily, and they usually debate and argue before they do. Sometimes they have to be bombed into going to war.
World Trade Center, those 2 great edifices of tremendous architecture, they were destroyed, in such a way that nobody still understands what happened. How come they were brought down in such a massive way? 1 week before, one of the great rabbis in Israel, Hasidic rabbi, an Admor, he came to visit the Square Rebbe in Square, New Square. And he came with some people, some of his disciples in the car. They prayed Mincha with Minyan in front of everybody passing in Manhattan, where? Right there, near the World Center. After he finished the davening, the prayer, he said, say bye-bye to those buildings because you are not going to see them no more.
Some people say, and the collapse of the Twin Towers, it was actually the first shot of this Gog Magog. The interesting part is that George Bush, in the time when the twins collapsed, he gave a speech to the country, and he said the verse from Tehillim.
And I pray they will be comforted by a power greater than any of us, spoken through the ages in Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me.
In this verse, there is equal mathematical skip of the date of the collapse of the buildings of September 11.
As we were getting our gear on and making our way to the stairway, there was a heavy-duty explosion.
The whole building just collapsed on us inside the lobby.
Was that a secondary explosion?
Yes, it was.
That was
Yeah, definitely secondary explosion.
I heard a second explosion and another rumble.
An hour later than that, we had that big explosion from much, much lower.
It just went ba-boom, it was like a bomb went off. And another explosion came right from it, just everyone flying.
Valerie Plame, former CIA operative, linked to an article on Twitter today titled, I want to read this, America's Jews are driving America's wars.
Police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the 2 towers. A huge explosion now raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way!
Well, big catastrophe, and I'm Israeli, and I hope that now people understand what we have to deal with, the kind of people that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
That is the end of the process to bring the Jews back. God says, we're finished. Now the retribution starts. That was the first week in September. What happened in the second week? September 11th, World Trade Center disaster. That's what God's waiting for. Because he needs this process to bring the Jews back. As soon as the process is over, which is Durban, South Africa, because that's the real end of the process, to convince the Jews that you have to rely on me, it will never happen. Then automatically the World Trade Center occurs. Because the process is over, now the retribution begins for the terrible evil that America has been doing to the Jewish people.
Fires in high-rises have never brought down a steel frame high-rise building at all, ever. And what we have, unfortunately, is the evidence in the Twin Towers and the third skyscraper to collapse that day, which most people don't know anything about it. We have the evidence of the 10 key features of controlled demolition. In the case of Building 7, it collapses straight down into its own footprint at free fall speed in the first 100 feet. It's dropping, as you can see, symmetrically, smoothly, at free fall speed in the first 100 feet, 2.5 seconds. This is uncanny. There's 40,000 tons of structural steel designed to resist this collapse.
And that's why Israel had information that they were giving the American government specific information. There will be an attack in North America within the next 30 days. There will be a hijacking of aircraft, and those aircraft will be used as flying bombs.
Also, the dancing Israelis that got arrested across the water in New Jersey, jumping up and down, that were videotaping it. And I'm not saying Israel did 9/11, but the way the globalists work is they get multiple intelligence agencies involved. Just like Epstein was Mossad, MI6, and CIA. I do believe elements of Israeli government were involved in 9/11. And it's come out that Israel's helped fund Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
The World Trade Center security was an Israeli-owned company. Security at all 3 of the airports from which the 4 aircraft on 9/11 departed, ICTS, was an Israeli security company. That security company, by the way, also had security at the airports in Paris and Amsterdam later, from which the so-called shoe and underwear bombers departed.
The voice of the hijacker heard from the hijacked plane's voice recorder reveals that the accent of the hijacker matches an Israeli Hebrew accent. FBI Director Mueller, BBC News, and ABC have confirmed that 7 of the 19 Muslims whose mugshots were flashed around the world did not die in the 911 crashes. They are alive and well and are victims of identity theft. An 8th accused Muslim died 1 year before the 911 hijackings even occurred.
Osama bin Laden, number 1 on everybody's most wanted list in the world today, is saying that once again that he did not do it. Don't hold him responsible. He's not guilty. He said after the recent attacks which the U.S. has witnessed, the U.S. government ventured to point fingers at me, accuse me of involvement. The U.S. government has consistently blamed me for being behind every occasion its enemies attack it, that is the United States. And it goes on. I would like to assure the world that I did not plan the recent attacks, which seems to have been planned by people for personal reasons. And as for me, I have been living in the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan and following its leader's rules. The current leader does not allow me to exercise such operations.
Silverstein used to breakfast every morning at the windows on the World Restaurant at the top of the North Tower, but he didn't turn up for work on 9/11. And neither did his 2 children who worked at Silverstein Properties. The reasons cited were that Silverstein had a dermatologist's appointment and his children were running late.
We need another 9/11 for you guys to...
look at the hatred. Yeah. Look at the hatred streak. We need a 9/11 for you guys, for who? The Muslims. You want Muslims to be dead.
We kill people for a living. That's what we do. We love...
God.
No!
Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly said the September 11th attacks have been good for Israel. Netanyahu said, quote, "We're benefiting from one thing, and that is the attack on the Twin Towers and Pentagon and the American struggle in Iraq."